second, Brooks and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Leading us off will be our director, Stephen Kiergaard, also our chairman of the advisory board, Greg G. Feller. Welcome, Greg, and everyone else, welcome. Take it away, Stephen.
Commissioners, Stephen Kiergaard for the record, obviously. Kind of the first item that we talked through is the advisory board draft minutes. The first one is that a staff put on item, which is a parachute operations, which we needed to add into our minimum standards, but also just a general update to our minimum standards. It's been about 4 or 5 years, or 3 or 4 years or so since we've done it, and living document, and it's one of those things every couple of years we do plan to review them, so it's one of those items. And the adding the parachute operation does provide that option. The parachute operation, we are proposing restricting the operation from May 1st to September 30th. However, we have not done a board action on that yet, so it's still in discussion. I've been having conversations with the FAA about that. The regional compliance it's their feeling. I'm gonna caveat that when they say feeling, I argue that when they start saying that, that means they don't have a strong position to defend anything. The restriction we're proposing is too harsh. So that's something we'll talk about as a board. However, if the board wishes to continue with it, when when the FAA says they feel it's something, I'll argue with them all the way for a long time on that. But when they start quoting laws and things like that, then they tend to have a better case. But either way, we've actually, since the original version that we talked about with the staff or with the advisory board a month ago, we've actually been modifying and adding other things to it. There's actually 4 options. I believe I sent out another updated. Also, that went out to the advisory board as well. So there's many more options that the board, if they wish to do, they can remove it. It's kind of up to the board at this point. I'm not kind of that discussion. I do disagree with the FAA that this parachute operations, our airport's too busy, in my opinion, to handle skydiving operations and accommodate all of our traffic. Especially when we look at what we're going to be doing with the decoupling. It's going to move a lot of our traffic onto that side of the airport. It's not going to be, I disagree with their efficiency reasoning and their safety reasonings as well. But they're the ones that determine that. So it's an interesting situation.
So they're in favor of continuing the skydiving operation, is that it?
Their comment is that you have the full right to implement restrictions. Just what they are proposing, they feel are too excessive. When I pressed them, they would not provide what they felt was appropriate, and they would not provide any guidance beyond that. Okay. So basically, they're saying, put whatever you want down and let it go to a federal complaint, and then we'll determine that at that point.
Okay. So did you have operator input or involvement in drafting this?
We did not.
Okay. Did you want to go through the different options?
Realistically, I think as a board, it's not a right time. I think this is an advisory board discussion point at this point. Most of this is realistically pulled from another location. It's actually pulled from an airport that has a significant operation on it already. So most of it, it's already in place at other airports. So the one clause, the sticking point, I think is going to be whether you restrict the operation or not. So that's it for the advisory board.
When do you need a decision?
It's realistically before the next season for them, and that's it.
Now, when does their season end? This fall?
It's soon.
October 17th.
So,
October, okay, mid-October. Okay.
So they'll typically start up in April.
Okay. So we have to make a determination by then?
Yep.
Or before then, okay. All right, keep going.
So kind of I might let Greg actually talk about the airport authority. That was your request, Greg.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I asked Stephen to put on the airport authority on the agenda for the advisory board. And, Stephen took a lot of questions from us about how we thought it would work, what might be good, what might be bad. And so it was a good conversation, and I think it's still something that we should continue to probably investigate down the road. Did that sum it up, Stephen? I mean, you had quite a few questions.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. There was some general public conversation as well. To me, the audience questions were more stemming of, well, how do we replace a board member? And that was more their issue. That was, Greg, that was kind of my thought on it. It was not more, they didn't like the idea because they couldn't vote out a board advisory, or the board members instead.
Right.
They were more worried about the appointees versus
The actual operation.
having a say in it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that. So public comment wasn't recorded on that, so we don't really know everything that they,
Yeah, and that's because my staff follows public comment typically is just comments from made. There's no,
okay.
and that was, from that conversation, that's what most of the questions were stemming from, is the appointment of the board, not truly the operation of it, and that was it.
And the reason I asked Stephen to bring it up is that it had been discussed here, and then it was also an article in the paper. And my goal was for the advisory board to be up to speed on what it was all about. And then, there was public
Yeah, and
comment.
I think the way we left it was we were gonna defer any discussion until, well, what would be the end of this month, yeah. So, was there much public comment?
There's a couple comments about it, and it, like I said, it basically stemmed back to the board appointment. There was the fear of, how do we replace somebody that isn't in the best interest of the airport? Is my take on it. The board may have a different take on it.
Well, yeah, I think some of the comments came from the pilot community. So the pilot community, I think, to some extent, some believe that it should be run by pilots, for pilots. And I think that the whole thing of the joint powers here would be that more or less that it's a Kootenai County asset. And how do we develop the airport to serve all the citizens of Kootenai County? And their fear is that by not having the users, even though there is provisions for users to be on that committee or that joint powers board, that they would lose all control. And therefore, because they're appointed positions, and they couldn't come after an elected official, allegedly. I think that sums it up.
And I also look at it as, there's a difference in even understanding of who stakeholders of the airport are. When I look at it, it's every citizen, every user, every person within the county. When you talk to most of the pilot group, they view it as just the people on the airport. So that's the difference in mentality you typically will see between when we talk about stakeholders. So that's kind of where that a lot of came from.
Okay, so in the brief description here, you cite Haley and Lewiston.
Yep.
So how are their, or do you know, how are their boards comprised?
So they're actually a combination between the county and the cities.
Okay.
County and city. I'll be honest, we'll be probably a little bit different because we're surrounded by 4 separate cities.
Yes.
And those 2 airports specifically are surrounded by 1 city and 1 county. So that would be slightly different in how we would propose it.
Okay, okay.
But it's also, as we talked about previously, it's whoever's interested in having that conversation. I've had some preliminary conversations with City of Hayden a little bit. There is some interest on their part, whether it be doing something along those lines or not. It's because they understand that we interfere. Let's face it, we caused them a lot of issues because of where we're located. But I also look at it, Rathdrum's coming down to us, Post Falls will eventually come over to us, so we at least need to have that conversation with them.
Sure. It's funny, the conversations I've had with Hayden, they are not interested, so we'll have to see.
I think it depends on who you talk to, too.
Yeah, I noticed in here it said, Brett Boyer thought it was something maybe worth pursuing.
Yep.
To be self-sufficient.
Yeah, which is different than an authority.
How would you be self-sufficient without an authority?
Technically, we will be self-sufficient this year.
financial.
Oh, I see what he's, oh, you mean financially,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
And, you know, my other opinion is I think it would set the airport up, I'm not to take away from what you're doing now, but I think it would set the airport up for future growth down the road, which, you know, we don't know what's behind the next corner of what the airport could change to.
You mean with the joint powers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that are on the Spokane Airport Authority or whatever it's from, or whatever it's called, and they are, like, one of them is like the director at Sacred Heart Hospital or things like this. And I know she was telling me that she brought to the table an emergency operating plan that, you know, their director was part of that, but it was like, let's focus on some of those things too. So, to my opinion, it's more about having the whole community look at that, and then how we can develop it, and also how we can economically develop it. You know, it is a huge asset, at least in the summertime, for tourists. There's a lot of business going on out there still today, and for the Forest Service. They used the living daylights out of it this year.
So that reminds me, do we have to allow commercial service if we get a tower?
No,
Okay, so we can have, as a GA, just have a tower.
there's a lot of GA airports that have a tower. Phelps, look at Phelps Field.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
So kind of moving on to the status
Yeah,
update.
go ahead.
You know, if there's any items specifically you'd like to talk about, otherwise they were, the document provides kind of an update on all of the items. There will be a bunch of closeouts, but if you have questions, I can.
Can we talk about number 4, the snow removal and administration building design? The way it says here, 95% for the admin design and received a grant for the SRE design. Where's the money coming from for the admin design? And,
From our fund balance.
okay, so was that, I guess I don't remember that being approved separately outside.
You were actually out of town when both contracts were approved. It was approved by Bill and Chris.
Okay.
Snow removal. Say that again, Stephen?
What months? What month?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can look back and see when it was, but it was, you were out of town and unable to make the business meeting.
Okay.
Oh, is this the one that we took up last week, Dina?
No,
No, it's a different one.
A different one, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so then we haven't started design on the SRE building?
no, they're both facilities are designed at 95%.
Okay,
We're running into an issue where the SRE building, if we're bidding it out, isn't getting a great bid package because we've actually changed it so it's both as one. We can separate it back out as one, the SRE is one, as its own unit. But the issue is we're finding that it's not efficient. We're not getting a good pricing because it's not
Right.
a large enough structure.
Right.
We're also running into the issue is the FAA has allocated funding in 2024, it looks like, to demolish our facility. So our admin facility, they're gonna be addressing, the geometry issue of the runway two end, which is our building. Cause there should be a taxiway basically running right through our building.
Can I ask Stephen, is that to make Delta 90 degrees or whatever taxi?
Yeah, so Delta would now come at a 90-degree, basically right through our building, then come in at 90 into 2. And then where Delta is that hangar development,
And you're talking demolishing when, 24?
24.
Okay.
So we have to address where airport admin is going at some point.
right.
Okay, so the design work is what, is that TO Engineers?
TO with a subcontract out to Alliance.
Oh, okay. All right. Did that address your?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead,
Good on
Stephen.
If
that?
if nothing else, we'll kind of move on to the budgeted pickups. So there was a miscommunication, if you remember with the toolcat, we were using 69,000 that we got from the first CARES money. But the board approved going above to buy couple additional implements, which was about 13,000. But there was a miscommunication, it sounds like, with the auditor staff and our staff and board direction. Instead of taking the other 13,000 from fund balance, it was taken from our already budgeted 35,000 from our pickup, which is coming from fund balance anyways. So we actually don't have enough money to buy the already ordered pickup, so it leads to the issue of, we're getting another $23,000 grant from the FAA for our CARES money. So we're just planning to use that money to offset the $13,000 that is missing.
Okay.
And we'll work with Dina to ensure that that's right on our end, and if we have to come back to the board, we'll come back to the board and do the proper thing. I'm just providing you an update on what's going on with it.
Okay, and how much was the pickup?
35,000.
Okay.
We ordered it in May, and we still don't even have a VIN number.
So it's for FY '21?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's a carryover from FY '21 that we ordered in.
Yeah.
We ordered it in May, and we still don't even have a VIN number.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Keep going.
So various leases, this is just kind of a reminder, you can expect to probably see multiple leases coming forward due to non-completion or non-performance of building structures. And I'm not going into detail of which ones those are, but we'll probably see a couple in October, a couple more in December, and a couple in May. So what's driving those different timeframes is we set dates, and a couple of them are in October that they had to have something submitted to community development. And then we're gonna give them until May, and they have to be starting construction. That's both in October and December. So if they don't have anything submitted to community development for full plan sets, everything, we're gonna be submitting termination documentation for the leases. But if they do submit the paperwork to community development, they get through everything, and they don't start by doing construction of some sort in May or June, we'll terminate their leases in June. And there's probably about
I was going to ask you how many.
between 4 and 6 of leases that we know about
Okay.
today. And so that's where we kind of sit today. Realistically, we have a waiting list of about 8 people, so we anticipate to lease them back very quickly. But this is kind of the process that the article of the paper telling everybody that we're running out of space hurt and helped us at the same time. COVID also hurt us a little bit. We have been getting paid throughout this time, but we really need people to build hangars. So, any questions on that?
No, and I imagine with the labor shortage and the material shortage that people are getting strung out.
And we've been very kind to people. We've provided actually well beyond the 6 months in the year that are specified in their leases of when they can construct. However, we're starting to the point where in May, it's gonna be almost 2 years for some of these people.
Oh, okay.
So we've been more than fair.
Accommodating?
It's
Okay.
a little bit outside COVID probably at this point.
Yeah, it's people are choosing to try to hold leases. There's one person that we have heard but not been able to prove that he's trying to sell his lease. There's not a structure on it, but he's trying to sell it. So if we can find proof of it, we terminate the lease just for that,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Okay. Blue Water Tech lease?
So these leases, this lease is the Gerstein lease that's on the document that I sent to you, that I emailed to you and that's sent before you guys. This is a lease that's gonna come before you. This is actually, I would say, our 3rd worst lease in the field right now. Right now, the lease is actually a 100-year lease with very few provisions, and it's 10 to 11 cents per square foot. Well, they're looking at selling the building, and so the people are looking to buy it, want to modify the lease, and we've negotiated a new lease rate and lease terms. And it's following our standard lease practices. So in order to break that lease, we've agreed to a 25 cents per square foot for the first 5 years, 30 cents per square foot for the next 5, and then after the 10 years, it goes to market rate
Okay,
to determine at that time. So we're setting a process to how we're gonna solve the issue. And the reason we're agreeing to that is because the lease that was in place was so bad. Legal and I don't agree that we should have been able to cancel it. Legal says we can't. Because in my opinion, it violates federal law and it violates our grant assurances. So we needed to get rid of it. And that's why we're agreeing to the terms. And they're amicable to it. They're just trying to close up some paperwork with SCBA so they can do it.
okay. So you're saying legal disagrees?
Legal disagrees
Not
with the
with the new
old.
one. Yeah,
Not
with
the
the
Not
new
with the
one,
new one, okay.
the old one. We disagree that we have certain rights.
Not with the compromise?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So, the next two, if there's no questions on it, is more of we need to be on the same page on this, because I think we're kind of drifted apart about what the ideas of the PAC lease, because we're kind of at a crossroads with them. We've kind of established an idea of what this Blue Water Technology Building, if we do 25, 30, and after 10, we determine market rate. You know, they provided me a document that said that they were gonna provide us services, but that was a $5,000 basically
Right, I
cost.
remember this,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and we were basically giving up, you know, it's a 2-acre lot, so we're gonna be giving up between $30,000 and $50,000, and they're only putting in 5.
Right.
That's not a fair trade, and it's an issue there.
Sure.
So really at this point, the board just needs to provide me direction of what do you really wanna do? Because we've been trying with PAC for a long time, and it's
Oh, yeah.
at this point, I think we just provide them with the lease, I think 25, 30, the same methodology we do with the Blue Water Technology Building is fair.
What is the market rate right now?
Technically, if you look at that ground, it's $150,000 to buy it outright per acre. So we did that as appraisal almost a year ago now,
Okay,
which is 10%, and you're 15,000 per acre. So you're 30-some-thousand, which,
right, okay, I'll go look at the,
So say that again. What's the lease rate?
so,
What's the market lease?
so if you looked at it, you're about 150,000 an acre.
Go
right
ahead.
now. So if you do 10% per acre for your lease rate.
So that's 15,000.
15,000, and there's about 2 acres,
So 30.
so 30,000 an acre.
So that's 2,500 a month. Bill?
I'm sorry. No, we don't have an appraisal yet on that chunk
No.
of property yet, do we?
For that, we have an older appraisal.
the PAC, yeah, for the PAC, we have
we
an
do.
older appraisal, but not for the
Not for that.
skeet trap yet. So you're saying 2,500 a
you.
month?
I mean, it's 2 acres. It's a pretty large area.
Right, but are you talking that's the 25 and at
No,
5?
for that it'd be, no, 1 second. You'd be about 21,000 a year, 22,000.
Oh, 21,000 a year.
Yeah,
So you're looking at about 1,800 a month, roughly.
roughly. That was my fast math too. I don't think I
Okay.
typed it in right.
So what's the hangup?
I need board direction on what to do with it.
We've been playing with this for years. You know, we were talking 12 or 1,500 a month several years ago when I came on, and we got nowhere. I mean, at some point, I think it has to be, this is the price.
And to me, and this goes for the Keaton Trap Club lease as well. This is a problem for the airport because we've worked very hard as the airport to stabilize and remove and make most of the leases as fair and equitable as we can, which means pretty much everybody's paying a pretty market rate, while we have these outlier leases that aren't.
But the outlier leases are all non-aeronautical use.
But we don't even have they're not even paying a non-aeronautical, I mean,
Sure.
they're not even,
It's not anywhere near market.
not anywhere near
Right.
market. We're not
Right.
even working towards market. And so it lies in an issue of, that's an issue for us. It can, you can have, somebody could file a complaint on this as realistically an economic discrimination.
Sure.
So that's why, as long as there's a path forward, the FAA is fine with it. But if it's an outlier, and I know we've been working on this a long time, but you gotta have a path forward on it.
Oh, no, I agree. So what are they paying now? What is it, $1 a year?
$1 a year, but realistically, we've been kind of refusing to accept that because I don't even want to accept that because it's so bad to accept $1.
I don't have a problem with the 1,800 if in fact that's what you consider market.
I actually don't even consider it market. I think it's a path forward. I think we propose the same thing that we did with the Blue Water Technology Building and say, for your first 5 years, it's 25 cents. The next 5 years, it's 30 cents. And then at the end of 10,
Okay.
we'll determine market, whether through an appraisal for that, or you'll buy the property out. We don't care. We'll deal with that at 10, but then because we did the Blue Water Technology, it's an additional 20-year lease beyond.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see it all lined out before we present it to PAC, but because the original numbers you were saying before were like 144,000 a year or
Yeah.
something. So,
We can-
12,000 a month. But,
And we can get this, we can do this because we already have the Blue Water Technology lease. We can just
Okay.
modify.
Yeah,
it
can you
into
do that?
theirs.
And then we can act on it?
Now we can act on it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Bill, any thoughts?
No, I really don't. More data.
Okay.
And the same kind of thought process goes with the skeet and trap. I know we're waiting on the appraisals with them, and we could wait for that, but I would still, I'm gonna be honest, I think they're gonna come in 150,000-ish still there as well
Per year.
per year.
So you're looking at about 12,500 a month.
But their skeet and trap club should lease about 30 to 36 acres.
Okay, so the appraisal is ordered.
Yes.
Any idea?
We've asked them where our status is, but they were 3 to 6 months out when we
Yeah, they're
got-
backed up.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess we wait until we get the appraisal before we do anything?
We can do that. We'll prepare, if the board's okay, we'll prepare a similar type of agreement that we're doing with this Blue Wire Technology Building and PAC for the gun club, because I don't think, my gut feeling is it's going to be very expensive for this land when we get the appraisals. And because they're not taking into account the removal, because technically, if the leases, the gun club should be responsible.
Yeah, but bottom line, they won't be, so the county is probably gonna be on the hook, so,
And I have an idea of how to deal with that, but it's still, when we look at the appraisals for what the land value is, if we're leasing it out long-term to them, they should be responsible, is my argument for that. So if the board's amenable to that, that's what we'll work on as another path forward that's at least on a path forward for them.
right.
So did you want to start on something ahead of the appraisal? Is that it?
Basically, we'll have
And then change the numbers as appropriate when you get the appraisal?
it depends on what they come out to. Is if they come up to really high, like I think they will, my recommendation would be to do the 25, 30, and then market value.
Yeah,
in a
to
couple
me,
years.
to me, it's kind of two separate paths. If the appraisal comes back at a decent amount, the county could choose to purchase the property from the airport and lease it to the ski club, which then we determine our own rate. It's not dependent on market value in Stephen's case for FAA assurances. If we choose not to purchase it for them, or they cannot purchase it and they still are interested in staying there, then this would be an appropriate option.
Yeah.
What's your estimate of value again? Yours.
I think they're gonna be pretty similar to what the property up north was, which was about 150,000 an acre. You look at where the location is, it's right on Ramsey Road. It's got good access to a lot of things. It's light industrial.
When we were talking before, where was the 70, where did the 75,000 an acre come from?
I
Did we
think that
do-
was the north side stuff.
Oh, okay. All right.
But even then, I mean, prime location in Hayden was 130,000, and that was, high-density residential.
High-density residential.
Yeah. So,
So, I mean, even if it comes at 100,000 though, it's still 20,000 or 10,000 an acre, so it's, they aren't gonna be able to afford that.
So what do you suggest we do now ahead of the appraisal?
We'll draft up some possible leases, cause my issue is I saw in the status update that they were presenting a lease. We've never accepted anybody to provide a lease to the airport. We just don't do that, so I have problems with having somebody outside the airport present to a lease to us. So, cause it doesn't
Matter.
protect the airport
Right.
typically is what they don't do.
sure.
So that's kind of what my thought process is we'll kind of start working through a possible lease documentation for it. And we'll kind of leave the numbers we'll put some numbers in there of what we've done for these other items, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was more like presenting it to the county, as the county is the owner of the land, not the airport. So that's why I was okay with them bringing terms forward. So,
And that's fine.
yeah.
Anybody can bring anything forward. Okay. Anything else?
I have some questions, I think, on the project update.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep.
Although this is September 2nd, is that the most recent
No,
one?
it's not the most recent one.
Okay,
You gotta keep in mind that this was September's meeting. I had to go read through everything again. I forgot what we talked about.
okay, we can, I mean, if you just give me the updated one is totally fine, so I think, I just want to know about the FAA signed reconfiguration Infinity Apron documented categorical exclusion on August 23rd.
So that is we're trying to stick some more hangers
Okay.
into the electronics ramp.
Okay,
So that was, basically, because it was not shown on our ALP, we had to do a CADX, to do that, and also an ALP update. So it's basically, we can put 7 more hangers onto a ramp.
okay. And then what are the 7460s related to that?
7460s.
Yes,
So those are anytime we build a structure on the airport, we have to file a 7460, which is a notice of construction
okay,
to the FAA to say that what the height of the elevation is,
Yeah.
what that is. It's part of that basically we account for paying TO to do it as part of the application process.
sure. So notice of construction, that's fine. And then, the CIP, I have one dated September 21st. Is that the most recent one?
We actually have a CIP meeting with the FAA on the 13th, 14th,
Okay.
sometime. We're still discussing because there's a couple projects that are repeating themselves. We're trying to iron out what project they want which year.
Okay,
And it looks like they're moving up some projects. 2023 looks like a major construction year right now. And it's
Okay.
just when they've allocated funds.
okay,
Cause it's not something that we expected, but it kinda looks like they're shuffling. It looks like they're gonna stick mill and overlay, a 624, a connection point, and the decoupling all in 1 year.
okay.
And that would be
So does that mean the decoupling's been moved up from 26?
what it sounds like.
That's what it appears based upon their documentation that we got,
Okay, and then, is this a Zoom meeting, or are they coming here?
the Zoom meeting.
Okay, I probably want to be in to listen to that.
I
If you
can
can let
share
me
that.
know.
What,
Thank you.
how long would the decoupling take? The duration of the work? What do you estimate?
Like 2 or 3 years, isn't it?
No,
No?
it would take probably a month.
To rip it up and to repave and stuff?
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Because realistically, the decoupling itself doesn't take that long.
Is everything leading up to it?
It's actually all the connections that it will take time. Because we have to rebuild the connection points on Alpha, on November, on both sides, because they don't come in at a 90-degree angle. So
Gotcha.
that's where the true time frame comes from. We also have to or do a mill and overlay on the section of 624 that wasn't done just prior, so you have to do a mill and overlay there. So it's not much, it's the true removal of pavement.
Well, yeah, that can be done overnight.
it's
We've seen that
basically-
across the country.
Yeah, it's basically 2 or 3 days, maybe a week to finish that. It's the other things that will take time.
Okay.
Okay.
I've,
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
the 624 rehab in 2022 then, or 23?
23, it looks like.
So the whole thing? Wow.
And that's one of the conversations we're having with them, because we were under the impression that they weren't funding it until 25.
Right.
It appears
Okay.
that they shifted it. So we're trying to figure out what they're doing too.
Well, yes, because the issue is going to be you can't have both runways.
So
Down.
the phasing would happen is you'd mill and overlay 624 to the basically hold short of the other runway.
Right.
So 220 would remain open at full length at 5,400. As soon as the 624 was finished, you then switch,
Yeah.
close 220, do the decoupling, and deal with that. And then the next year, you'd end up coming back and probably doing grooving at night. I've done that before. So in the darkness, you just have a grooving machine out there and groove the runway.
Right.
Okay. Are you good?
Yes, thank you.
Bill, any questions? Public
No,
com-
I have no questions.
Public comment? No.
Yes, we've got,
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
I'm Jeremy Divan, owner of Keys on Skydiving. I'd just like to say I strongly oppose any of these restrictions on the skydiving. I actually find it quite malicious, as the skydiving only happens for 6 months out of the year, and we're asking to restrict it for 5 months out of my 6. I also find it quite odd that I've been purposely left out of any discussions with the FAA, being your local expert on the skydiving here.
Okay. Well, thank you for commenting. Any others? Nancy, people on? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Time is now 11:40, meeting adjourned. Thank you.